Just bear with us for a moment. We need another headset, and Louise needs to come back to start the streaming. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out on this windy day. I hope you've parked your broomsticks well, because you might not find them there when you come back. So, this evening we are looking at, after a couple of weeks of hard work by you all, tonight we have our draft report. I don't think I'm handing over to everybody, so if we followed the agenda. So do we have any apologies for non-attendance?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from councillors Stephen North, Russell Roberts and Jim Hakewill.
Thank you. Do any members have any declarations of interest for the meeting? Councillor Level.
So going back to apologies, my apologies are missing from appendices 7, 6, 5 and 3.
7, 6, 5 and 3. Thank you very much. We will be making amendments. Are there any notifications to request to speak at this meeting? Okay, thank you. So we come on to the agenda item 4, the draft budget, and a report from the scrutiny budget team. I don't want to, obviously a lot of work's gone in this over the weekend, to which we thank the support team and especially Ben for putting together. But we are here to take questions should you wish to ask questions. Excuse me one moment.
Section by section?
Yeah, I think so. Section by section. I hope you've all seen the thanks that the team have given to all of you for all your hard work in putting together the budgets or draft budgets for the year, and the work that went into some of those, putting down the pressures, how much you've got, and sort of taking us through that step by step. Obviously, there are external issues around inflation, the government settlements, which again are just for a year, the internal bits where we're still working towards, some of those transformation, harmonisation bits and pieces. There are still areas of risk in some of those areas, especially around demand-led outsourced services, which the market itself is, you know, sort of dictating what's going on. And then we thank, obviously, the finance team, led by our 151 officer, Section 151, for all the work, keeping us on track as much as possible. So thank you for that. If anybody's noticed any little things that they'd like to change, we're open for that. If not, the next section is draft scrutiny submission to the executive on the 8th of February, which we put down the summary, the purpose summary, and the areas, the background areas. Again, if you've got any observations or questions or amendments, please do raise your hand. So, you're all sitting quietly at the moment. Most of this, the summary focuses on phase 2 of the budget scrutiny sessions, where you came and presented to us. So, in terms of the Children's Trust, do we have any factual amendments or observations or questions? Yes, Councillor McGee.
Sorry. Thank you, Chair. You may have noticed my absence at the last meetings. I'm going to clarify to the rest of the panel that I work during the day, so being able to attend meetings during the day is not at all practical for me. So I'd just like to give thanks to my substitute, Anne Lee, who covered for me whenever she could, which was brilliant of her. She's also supplied me with some wonderful and incredibly detailed notes. So just off the back of what you were saying there, and following the Panorama programme on the state of schools, I'm concerned that the school's budget isn't adequate to cover the recent discovery of the concrete in schools and what's left to build from there. And also just, I don't remember seeing the budget's adequate. Schools have been left to crumble, basically. So do the directorate in charge feel like they have a strong enough budget to be able to cope with this?
I'm coming back, and I know that this is Claire for the capital bits, or is it Janice for, because there were bits in the budget about schools, but under capital works.
Is someone able to talk me through them, with my apologies for not being there when it was originally discussed? If any member has a problem with that and is shaking their head about it, please do come and tell me to my face what your problem is.
It's fine, thank you, Zoe. We will.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank
Are
you, Chair.
Are you happy with that?
Yes, so, sorry, this is a question in relation to the concrete issue. So, at the moment, as far as we are aware, we've not had any schools been flagged with that issue, so there's no capital programme at the moment coming forward for that, but we do have quite a lot of capital programme within the for schools in particular. So in the capital programme, there's quite a number of projects that are ongoing for certain academy and maintained schools, but none of them at the moment have flagged that they have any issues with this aerated concrete.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Claire. Okay, so if there are no questions on that section, can we move on to the next one, which is the financial plan? Oh no, it isn't, sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. to Children's Trust. Sorry. Which one? I thought it was this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To go through that again,
No, it's fine. Enabling services. So on page 7, enabling services. Have you had a look through that? Customer and governance. ICT. Okay. Sorry, am I doing this wrong? Because if I am, I don't mind bringing it round.
No, sorry, Chair, we were just checking whether there was anything that we wanted to feed back on that, but no, we think it's correct.
Okay, sorry, I do apologise. Guy, ICT, no?
No, it's just whether members want any additional feedback or got any additional queries, Chair.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Happy to take any questions.
Okay, moving on. Public health and well-being. No? Communities and leisure. Councillor Lawman.
It's not so much a question more than a statement. In 21, I think we need to ask the appropriate portfolio holder and the leader to actually lobby more for the domestic abuse funding, as it is very, very low when one thinks about how many residents we have. And unfortunately, with deprivation and everything else, the incidence of domestic violence are higher. So could we possibly note that we ask the exec portfolio holder and the leader to please lobby for more funding? Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Children's services. Yep.
Can I just also, I think there might be a point of clarity in that particular point, 21. It's put down here that proposed saving. It's not a saving, it's actually about an external grant that we receive, at which Councillor Lawman has said that perhaps we need to lobby around, but it's not a saving.
So the grant funding was 692,000, yeah? If it's taken out of the budget, it would normally be a saving though, wouldn't it?
It's the wrong wording, though.
Yeah,
I think
it's the wrong
wording
wording.
issue we can look at clarifying. I think it was what we talked about in the meeting was that there might be a pressure associated with that area if that grant funding didn't come forward. Going, in later years.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Thanks, Chair. Just to clarify, in terms of the 692, we have reflected the 692 as a saving in terms of coming out because we're not incurring that expenditure, but we've also reflected the 692 as a pressure because we're not receiving the grant. So it's a net nil impact. Thank you.
Yes. Councillor Lawman.
Would it not be right then to amend it, instead of the word saving, insert grant funding to make it clearer?
And what we will do is when that goes back for these amendments that you know, we look at that part of it. Thank you very much for that. So, children's services. There's a section there under the summary showing education, commissioning and partnerships, dedicated school grant, Ofsted. Are there any issues that people wish to raise on that? Yes, David.
Just again, a point of clarity on paragraph 26. So the final part of that sentence should read, having risen from 70.2 million to 85.4 million for 24-25 and to 98.2 million in 27-28. So we can provide you with the clarity of the wording. It's just we need effectively the 93.6 removing. But we'll update the report. It doesn't materially change it.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have anything else to add. I thank the members for their contributions on Friday. It was a useful conversation with everybody, so thank you for that. And we're happy with the comments or the notes that have been made of the meeting, so nothing further to add. Thank you, Chair. Happy to take any questions if there are any, of course.
Growth and regeneration, highways and waste. Yes.
Nothing further to say, Chair. Those are all just the sub-directorates, if you like, within place and economy. So okay. My comments refer to all of them. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Adults Health Part.
Question about highways, please.
I do apologise.
Sorry, no, it wasn't you. It was me. It's only just occurred to me in this moment. It's nothing to do with you, Chair. Do not worry.
Councillor McGee.
Thank you, Lynn. So, my opinion, obviously it's an opinion, is that the money that Kier are taking from us is getting quite out of control, and it's a lot of money. Is there any safeguards in place to stop that price continuing to rise? Is there a cap limit? Is there a negotiation? Basically, is there a safeguard to stop that price rising? Thank you.
Through you, Chair.
Yep.
Thank you. So we have a contract with Kier with set prices. So we pay the same set price for the works that they do. There is an inflationary increase every year, of course, in line with various different indexes which are agreed within the contract. So they are approved and monitored every year, and they will go up every year. But essentially, we pay them what the contract requires us to pay them to do individual jobs. The reason why we're spending more with Kier is actually because we are investing more into our roads. So every time that we choose to invest more into maintaining our highways network, the amount that we end up paying Kier will increase because they're doing more work for us. So the more work we put through the contract, the more budget we have available for maintaining our highway, the more obviously we will be paying to Kier. But that's a choice that the council has. That's not something that Kier determine. That's what we determine, just like spending our money anywhere else we spend.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing the effects of that on the roads. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
I also think there was a question there around, so we heard on Friday that Kier had got the contract for flood work, that they were doing some work on grounds maintenance, and maybe I've got that wrong, but I suppose, learning from the past in terms of some of the big companies that have gone under, like Connaught and things like that, where putting all your eggs in one basket sometimes isn't cost effective because of the pressures that you put on. So around that sort of area, are we putting more and more pressure on Kier itself to deliver more and more things? I think was around the question, as far as I understood it.
Thank you, Chair. It's interesting. Certainly when we appointed Kier just over a year ago, we carried out in-depth financial due diligence on the company to make sure that it was a sound organisation, as you would expect before we award any large contract. So with our colleagues in the finance department, we went through that process and were reassured that as a company and its parent company as well, because Kier is a group of companies, and we deal with an element of that, so to be reassured that they have the financial stability and resilience. And certainly in terms of Kier, not wanting to promote them as a company particularly, but they actually are doing particularly well at the moment, and their share price continues to rise. So we will carry on doing those checks throughout the life of the contract. I don't believe that we are putting too much of our emphasis on Kier. It's essentially a highways contract. It does a number of different features around the highway, so it is beyond just potholes. It does an awful lot of other maintenance for us, including verge cutting, which perhaps is the ground maintenance that you're referring to, but it's highway verges. It's not all of our country parks. It's not all of the green space that we maintain. It is predominantly around highways maintenance and highways design and various other highways functions that they use. The flood services was an opportunity we had, as Rob Harbour explained on Friday, was an opportunity we had to utilise that contract to fill a particular gap that we had in our expertise, and that's proving to be useful. But predominantly it's around our highways network.
Councillor Lorman.
Thank you, Chair. If I could take Mr. Kane back to item 39. We discussed the IT platform, and I think it was Rob Harbour who answered that it was bringing the sovereign individual lists or spreadsheets, whatever, and especially the 106 stuff together into one platform. I would be happier if we, with your permission, if we had an agreement of the committee, if we had some sort of time frame in there, because I remember, as I said at the committee meeting 2 years ago, I had the same conversation with Mr. Harbour, and we haven't, as far as I can see, and it was explained, I haven't seen much more improvement on that. So, to say available across, there will be soon one platform. How soon is soon? And that is the first of my questions. If you want to take that one first.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Lorman. Yeah, it's not a problem. The project to create one single IT platform for both planning and regulatory services as well came through executive last year, actually, to confirm the funding for it. And within that paper, we outlined the time frame. So it's a phased approach. So at the moment, we're at the procurement stage of that project. The tender documents were just due to go out, I think, last week, and as far as I'm aware, they were ready to do so. But we're on track to procure that, and then it will be a phased approach. But we have some existing contracts already, which all end at different stages, and also building up the database and the system will take some time. So it's actually going to take about 18 months to 2 years to complete the whole project. But that is within the project plan. Broadly, I can't remember exact dates off the top of my head, but that was broadly the length of time, and that was outlined in the executive paper. We also update the Planning Transformation Board as well, because they take an interest in this. So the Planning Transformation Board meet on a monthly basis, so we update them. And also through our transformation programme, we have what we call highlight reports, which update on all the transformation projects within place and economy. So those exist as well, and we share those with our executive members. So there's a number of places that we report progress against that particular project.
Fabulous. May I go on to my next one?
Yeah, and then Councillor McGee.
The next one is under 42. We had a lengthy discussion about flat officers, and through the chair, could I please ask that details, up-to-date details of the contract persons are shared with all members, because it became apparent when we had the discussion that there were others who had similar issues, and we do have climate change challenges with our storms and floods and everything, so it's quite important. And could we also have a pointer, please, to have access to a project and the LC WIPS list? I mentioned it in that meeting as well. So we have, I mean, I'd like to see, and that's just me, I'd like to see where we are with what projects are live, and I said at the time, how do I get my projects onto that?
Councillor McGee.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry. Go on.
Thank you. That's all right. It's fine. I was all ready to go, and so that's fine. We can get you contact details of the individuals. There's also which is probably more useful to both members, but also to the team, if I'm honest. There's a team website, a team email address, floodandwater@North Northants. Which means that it will go to the team and they can pick it up. So obviously do that. Obviously I would emphasise that it's an emergency, then please don't be emailing, but be picking up the phone and using the numbers that are publicised on our website. If it's highways, for instance, there's a number on Street Doctor for people to call out of hours any time for emergencies. So I can circulate those contact details for the flood and water team, that's not a problem. In terms of the LC WIPs, there's a general update on the website as to which LC WIPs are in development. So that just tells you the stage that the LC WIP is at, whether it's out for consultation or whether it's been adopted. Within the LC WIP, there are many opportunities to develop the local cycling walking network. The LC WIP, what it does is it takes in a huge amount of information and data, some of which is soft data from consultation, some of which is hard data about popular walking routes, popular cycling routes, pinch points on the network, etc. And it comes up with a prioritised list. We will then work through that prioritised list. In reality, it will be a slow process because each route costs an awful lot of money to deliver. And as we were explaining on Friday, we are reliant on bidding to Active Travel England, who are the government's body on these matters, bidding into them for funding to actually build the routes out. So it will be a case of when those funding opportunities come forward, we will put forward our top priorities in the various different towns with the hope of securing funding. So just trying to manage expectations. This is a long-term plan, and having the LC WIPs puts us in a really good position to make those applications for funding, but we are reliant on receiving that funding from central government towards developing individual routes. And of course, as and when those routes come forward, there will be a great deal of consultation, just like there has been for the Corby route here, of course, from the town to the station.
Councillor McGee, sorry.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt there. I was just going to ask, you're going to have to indulge me, I'm afraid. It's definitely going to come across like I missed the session, but when you're talking about how we're on 35, this is a balanced budget for 24-35, however, there will be pressures in future years. Can I just ask what you think the kind of top 3 biggest pressures will be?
Through you, Chair, I don't have, in fact, could I get I could probably dig out the slides, but primarily the pressures originate from inflationary pressures, which obviously have seen a significant rise in the last couple of years, because we do have some large contracts and large services within place and economy, so they're high spending, which means when prices go up, costs go up, we really notice the increase, and they are big numbers. So inflationary will be the other one. The other one is around the growth in our population. You know, we're building houses in North Northants. Each of those houses needs bins to be emptied. Each of those houses has people. People generate traffic. They generate, therefore, decline on our network. They generate litter. They generate, I'm afraid to say, some of them, a very small percentage of them, fly tipping. All the increase in population continues to put pressures on our budgets across pretty much the whole of place and economy. So those are the main drivers, and then you see that coming out through the contracts and the types of services that we are providing.
Sorry, if that section's finished, we move on to adult health partnerships and housing. Sorry, David.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a number of amends, particularly around the numbers on this. What we think's happened is that Ben's translated the earlier set of numbers that we have, and it doesn't reflect the final numbers that have gone into the budget. So I can talk you through those, but again, we can provide you, we can make amends to the report afterwards. So we had quite a significant discussion around the financial pressures which we had within social care and some of the work which we've been doing to try and reduce down that pressure. However, at the end of that, we were still left with a financial pressure above and beyond what had gone out in the draft budget of 4.96 million. We did talk in the meeting about how we would manage that remaining. Is that right?
Sorry, it's 4.096.
Sorry,
4.096.
Yes. Yeah, it makes a big difference as well, doesn't it? 4 million to 5 million. So we did talk about how we would manage that for the next year. So we talked about using the earmarked adult social care smoothing reserve. There isn't reference to that in either the appendices or the main report. So we're happy to propose a set of words to clarify that. But what that does do is have a knock-on impact for the other numbers in that paragraph. So the 115.946 million should actually read 121.067 million. It was probably a miss here, but on the commissioning and performance budget, that should read 12.464 million instead of 13.464 million. Either that or because of some of the movements that we did in the budget, it's didn't get reflected because that seems to follow through from there. And then that also follows through to some of the numbers in paragraph 45 as well. So I'm happy. We can either run through them now or we can just show you the changes which it makes.
No, I think that, you know, you've pointed out that the amendments are needed. Obviously, there was a very, very short space of time between our budget meeting and putting the reports together. So, you know, this is what this session is about. It's about, you know, teasing out some of those factual errors that are there. So, yes, please, if you can
happy to do
pass
that.
those to Ben, I shall be most grateful.
So what I will do is we'll just make sure that you've got proposed new paragraphs 44 and 45 and probably an additional sentence to go into Appendix 7 as well. I do have some comments on paragraph 46 as well.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor McGee.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, if we are using smoothing reserves this year to top up the budget, does that then have a knock-on effect on how we then get a balanced budget next year? Because those soothing reserves, can they be replaced? Will they be replaced? Does it have a kind of pile-on effect?
So, yes, and when we went through the session, we did talk about some of the transformation programmes. So whilst we focused on the transformation programmes for next year, where we will deliver against, I think we've got about 13 of those in total. We also provided in the slide set just some examples of some medium-term plans that we've got, which we believe will also have a positive impact on the medium term. So we're not just thinking about the budget for next year, we're also thinking about the following years as well.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Chair. And again, thank you for indulging me with my quite obvious questions.
Not at all, Councillor McGee. That's what we're here to do, is, you know, if you've got questions, there is no such thing as a silly question or, you know, take a look at me and learn. Thank you very much. Anything more on?
So just on paragraph 46, and Councillor McGee, you really don't need to apologise. This is all complicated stuff, and if you don't live and breathe it every day, it can be difficult to keep on top of. On paragraph 46, in the final sentence, where it starts, it is further noted the HRA draft capital programme across 24-25 to 27-28 will be 21.641. That's incorrect. That should actually read 58.76 because that's the combination of both of those. And that should then say encompassing 37.93 million for the Corby neighbourhood account and 20.83 million for the Kettering neighbourhood account. And then we'd suggest, so it's just it's almost like we've repeated parts of the paragraph. So again, happy to provide you with the sentence with the correct, the numbers in the correct places.
That's lovely. Thank you very much, David. Okay, moving on. Adult social care. Nothing? Thank you very much for that then. So the appendixes are as written. I'm not going to go unless they're totally wrong.
No, not totally wrong. So an appendix for our finance business partner, Yoki O'Brien, was missed off the attendance. She was on screen. And then I have said that I'll provide you just with a mirror of the wording that we put into the main report to be included in the appendices, because at the moment it doesn't make any reference in there to that £4 million pressure. Yeah.
Okay. Has anybody? Councillor Level.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. If I can just make a general point about how this is sort of user-friendly or not. I would suggest taking £115 million, for example, to 3 decimal places is completely unnecessary, and having all these numbers sort of confuses the issue. I would suggest 1 decimal place would be enough, just for clarity and ease of reading the report.
You happy with that suggestion, everybody?
Yes, I mean, happy with the suggestion. Ultimately, the budget report will have the details to those 3 decimal places if need be, but if it makes for simpler reading and it gets the main message across and doesn't dilute it, I don't see that there's particularly an issue with that. Thank you,
yes, Janice, I just think, of course, you and I are accountants, we understand all these things, but many people are not.
Thank you. Anything more on the appendices before we go on to some of the recommendations? Can I ask a question here? Do members of staff need to be in here for this part of the discussions, or? Yeah. Are you happy all to stay? I don't know whether you've got a copy of the documents.
If you're happy to have our views on the recommendations, sometimes it can be helpful for us to talk about deliverability of them. So, yes, if you're happy to have us here for that.
Brilliant. Thank you. Do you have a copy of those? No? Okay, I can go through them. Are you all right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Councillor McGee, you had a question?
Yes, I have a kind of overarching concluding question, and I'm sensing this is the right time to ask it, or would you like me to postpone? Do you want me to so I'm going to ask you a question about the overall budget, not a specific thing. That's what I'm searching for clarity on. Okay, thank you. That's what I'm going to do now then. Okay, so overall, given the expected financial pressures this year, not just from the Trust but in social care, is it fair to say that we'll struggle to balance next year's budget and more reserves will be used from the Council's reserves in the future to maintain a balanced budget?
From my point of view, I know that Councillor Bundy has said that, you know, there will be pressures next year. So, yeah, unless we go through this year and understanding what the external and internal framework is going to be, I think that one's a difficult one. Can I pass over to Janice or Councillor Bundy?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Bundy. The budget, the draft budget does include some element of reserves, but it wasn't for the underlying costs of services at the point when the draft budget was produced in December. It was mainly for planned investment, for instance, in transformation or in new systems that were coming in, and that was the planned use of reserves coming through. The additionality since then is the conversation we've just had with David about adult social care, and that's the additional pressures that have come out from the monitoring, because we've obviously got to keep looking at this right until the final budget is produced. And that's where we've seen that there is a pressure within adult social care that we need to recognise, and so we've utilised the adult social care reserve to support that over 24-25, whilst we look at those the plans to see about how we can mitigate that going forward. But I'm sure, Councillor McGee, as you picked up, it's an element of what we need to support and to look at from 25-26 onwards as part of the medium-term financial plan, and it's critical that we start to address that right now, about looking at 25-26 as well as 24-25 that we've got.
Thank you. And can I ask a question then? Will this kind of continued ongoing financial concern have direct effect on the services and the quality of services that residents are getting?
I think it's a difficult one to answer, because ultimately if we've got a financial gap in subsequent years, then we have to look at the services that we provide, as any local authority does, and I'm sure you'll have read the stories about some of the changes that have been required in local authorities. Obviously, you'll have also read about some of the requests and lobbying of government as well for funding as well for local authorities going forward, not only in terms of quantum, but in terms of the length of time that we can have a settlement. So inevitably, if funding is reducing, we have to look about the cost of services, and then we have to look about the services that we are able to provide and how we can prioritise that service. I mean, the first thing we need to look about is, are we doing things in the most efficient way? Are we working with our partners in the most effective way as well to ensure that the total of the sum is bigger than the equivalent of the parts, if you see what I mean, that we actually work well with our partners in health, police, etc., and that we are doing this, and also the voluntary sector as well, working with those effectively and look at where the best place is to deliver these services, making sure people are signposted to the most effective place. So there's lots of things that we can still continue to do, but ultimately there is always going to be a risk that it's going to impact on the level of services. And I think I'd be telling you a rather large story if I were to say that that wasn't a possibility, Councillor.
Thank you, Janice, for answering my questions so straight and clear. Thank you.
Yeah, and not forgetting the LGA is, Local Government Association is predicting a 4 billion gap in funding for councils. You can see the amount of... So what budget scrutiny helps to do is give assurances that the teams are working to their best capacity in terms of those assurances, putting mitigations in where they can, the transformation work that's sort of going on. So, and part of the financing is the medium-term financial plan. So monitoring those sorts of things on a regular basis and asking the questions when those things come up is really important for us as a scrutiny committee. So don't ever think, you know, you don't have legitimacy in what you ask, because you do. So thank you for that.
In that case, Chair, can I sneak another one in?
Yes.
Please, thank you. So my question is, when you talk about those services that we need to look at, does that include our community centres?
To you, Chair, I think it's been possible for me to say what's included and excluded from that. I think what happens is options will be put forward about the ability to do that, because we'll have statutory services that we have to deliver, and then we'll look at discretionary services that there is a greater choice over, and then it's to prioritisation and need, really, as part of that.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I think we should thank Janice for taking the heat on those questions. Thank you very much.
Councillor Lawman.
Thank you, Chair. It is also important to note that the leader of NNC has introduced very stringent reviews of finances, where everything over £500 on a weekly basis goes into a review to ensure that our mindset, or the mindset, is changing as well, because sometimes I think we are all guilty of buying something that perhaps isn't absolutely necessary. And it starts with the small things, but they add up very, very quickly. And I know that the leader and deputy leader have lobbied government not only once, many times also for a multi-year settlement to ensure that our planning is easier for our officers, and I know that they won't let go until they have some sort of answers, and we can't predict what is going to happen. In many ways it could get a lot worse, I suppose, if we all know what is happening later on in the year, and so it's a big unknown, and Janice is absolutely right. We can't forecast what service would be cut. It could be anything that is non-statutory if we have to reduce our finances to such a level. So I think our officers have done a fantastic job balancing our budget in this way, and I have no issue with it.
Okay.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, it's not a criticism at all. It's a genuine question that comes from a place of respect and admiration, because this isn't easy, and I'm getting to grips with it very, very slowly, and definitely not with the eloquence that Janice and yourself, Chair, have shown. So thank you. So my question is just about clarifying. Well, I have two questions now, actually. One, how confident do we feel with this government lobbying? Do we feel that that is something that's effective and will come through? Question two, what does non-statutory include? Are there cuts that could be coming in this? Basically, there are cuts that are coming in this budget that we potentially don't know or can't predict now. Does that include things like housing? What is statutory, what isn't? What could be cut and what won't be?
So I think that outside of the meeting, whilst we're looking at this budget, I think that we'll let you know what are statutory services, and so it's not cutting things at this moment. It's giving a balanced budget. We as a committee will have to look closely at monitoring what's happening, so that we're all aware of anything that's coming up. So if we leave that bit there just for the moment, would that be all right?
Of course.
And then we'll come back to
But
it.
I won't forget.
No. Don't let me forget.
Thank you.
I promise. Thank you. Yes, Janice.
Just to add to that, Councillor McGee, the actual final settlement is about, I think, the 5th of February. So at that point, we'll know if any of the lobbying has been successful. So I think that will be the telling sign.
Okay. I noticed that you've been reading through and there's some bits that may be a little bit contentious. So, yes, David.
Thank you, Chair. You're probably expecting it anyway, but paragraph 2.3, so paragraph 2, subsection 3, will just need amending in line with the things which we've mentioned in the report before it goes forward as recommendations.
Yes. Yep, I understand that, and we'll ask for that to be. Obviously, you'll put things in, although there are still some uncertainties around adults' social care that we haven't, because of the use of smoothing reserves, that I think that we need to keep an eye on.
That's fine, Chair. I mean, we'll amend. I won't suggest the narrative, but if you want to add to that, then I understand. What we will do is correct the numbers for you, so that you've got that. But it might be helpful, Louise, if we've got the original paragraphs, because at the moment we've only got these. And thank you.
Thank you very much. I presume that you've all read through those bits now. Are there any bits that you feel need changing, or do you think that we've basically got a handle on the finances and understanding what the departments are going through? We're open to offers. Okay, so now we move on to our bit. So what we've done through this process is that when we've talked to you all, we've had our sessions with you, we've stayed behind and had those discussions about what we feel, what areas where maybe we've wanted a little bit more information, which I know those have been answered. So in terms of looking at if there are any other things that we want to put through, I think we need to have that discussion now between us, but you can still stay. Yes, David.
I was just going to say there are probably some bits in there that you want to have in private, so as long as the streaming's stopped at that point, because these are your private discussions. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you.